Well, thank you very much. We're honored to have all you folks stop by and let us address you today. I hear you've had a very busy day. I hope it's been enjoyable. I know you've been going at it all day long, so we hope I won't take too much of your time, just barely enough to get the point across. A couple, 3 hours. And then we're going to try to feed you well tonight. But first, let me say thank you, all of you, for the service that you provide this great state of Idaho and the people who live here and those who have been born and those who are yet to be born. I've never been a politician, don't plan to ever be one, but I'm really grateful for those of you who serve in that capacity. It's one of those things that baffles me as to why you would do this.
We felt the same way.
I've thought, considered what would be in it for you, and especially in this divisive environment that we're in today, where no matter which side you're on, you're going to be beat up, you're going to be ridiculed, you're going to be challenged. It's no longer the message or argue with the message, it's destroy the messenger. I want you to know that I think, well, number one, even though that's what you're up against, you serve anyway. Your families take a beating. They don't like to read bad things about you in the press. Your kids don't, your grandkids don't, and yet you still serve. And honestly, I think it's amazing. We want to be a support of the good things that you do. I think that argument for good solutions to real problems is where we ought to focus. It should not be attacks on individuals or on messengers. I think to attack the message might be fair, but not the person who's delivering it. There are bad actors, and sometimes bad actors should be exposed, but I don't think it's about the people, certainly not in office. So for one, I do not believe that those who disagree with me are my enemies. Those are the people I want to listen to the most. I wish we had more of that in our society. It seems to be going the other way. But I for one, I'm an advocate for sitting down with those who disagree with you and trying to, there's probably a good reason they disagree, and to try to figure that out and see if there's a way that we can cover their concerns as well as our own to make things work for everyone. Some people call it compromise. I'm not for compromising values or even results, but to work together to get a solution on really difficult problems that confront us as a nation and as a people and as a state. Having said that, let me say again, thanks for coming to let us address you. It's an honor to have you here at Melaleuca. I'm really proud of our company and not only where we are as a business, but how we got here. I wish I was going to tell you that I'm going to take the next few minutes to tell you about that. I'm not. I'll just say I'm just really proud of our 34-year history. Our success has been because of our products. People don't know a lot about our products. I think even local people don't. Fortunately, there are enough folks out there, a few 100,000 households, several hundreds of thousands of households, now close to 2 million households around the world that use our products every single month. They never miss. And that's because we've educated them. We don't advertise. It's all word of mouth advertising. We have a lot of jaw-dropper products. People, you say, no way. And we believe in the science. We don't believe in the folklore. And we've got tons of patents. But those are all stories for another day. We see ourselves as the champions of the little guy. And my dad was a little guy. He worked on the railroad. The most that I know that he made was $3.65 an hour. I think that was his highest wage. He was never a supervisor. He was never a manager. He had a third grade education. He taught me, not through lecture, but through, he was an honest man. He never lectured on honesty. He just was honest. He never talked about it. He just was it. And for that, I'm grateful for his example, and he was an example of good hard work and a good work ethic. And if I have somebody to say thank you to, it'd be to him. He passed long before we ever got Melaleuca started, but I think he would be proud of what we've built here. What I want to talk to you today is about the healthcare industry. The healthcare industry and a certain part of that industry that I think needs to be addressed in the state of Idaho. We all know it's an issue nationally. $3.65 trillion spent by American households and businesses in America each year. It's increasing at an alarming rate, 4.4% a year, which is faster than people's income is increasing. That was last year, it increased 4.4. They're anticipating that's going to be a faster clip, 5.5% over the next 8 to 10 years. The average household spends, the average company and employee together spends $26,000 a year on every family's health care, medical care. $26,000, that's national average. Here in our hometown, in this building, the employees, Melaleuca pays $20,000 a year as the portion of our budget, coupled with what our employees pay and co-pay. $20,000 per year, per family. That's a lot. Increasing at an alarming rate, faster than their wages are going up. But that's not our argument today. I think that's all legit. I don't know, I suppose there's lots of ways to make that better. We want our doctors to be paid. We want our hospitals to be paid. We want them to prosper. We think that's how to get good health care, is have our doctors and hospitals prosper. We're not challenging how much they make. Maybe there are other ways to do that that are better. That's not our argument today. There are legitimate collection practices. Sometimes people get hit with such a large bill that even after their insurance pays up, they've got thousands and thousands of dollars left on the bill. Maybe just even a few thousand, maybe just a few hundred. Maybe even for the average household, even $500 or $600 extra might take a few months to pay off, because they don't have that much left over at the end of the month that they can pay an extra $500. They may have to pay it over 2 or 3 or 4 months. We think there's legitimate reasons to have a legitimate system to collect debt that's due to be paid doctors and hospitals. But there's another side, another business that's working within our state that I do not think is legitimate. And it has to do with collecting medical debt. And the processes being used today, not only to collect the debt, that would be fine with us, but to run up atrocious attorney fees in the process, so that the patient not only has the medical debt that's already large enough, but now has attorney fees, huge ones, stacked on top of that they have to pay. We don't think that increases the quality of our medical care, and we think it hurts Idahoans dramatically. I'll tell you why I believe that. We didn't even know that this dark side of the medical profession, it's not really the medical profession, it's something that happens after. They're using the medical profession to do something that I don't think any of us really wants to have happen. We became aware of it when, because of what happened to one of our own employees. And for those who are worried about that I might reveal the names of persons or names of companies, I'm not going to do that today. I'm not here to attack or embarrass anyone. I'm going to tell you the story of things that happen, real stories that are happening, that cause us to believe that this needs to be addressed, but we're going to leave the names out of it. Our employee, a lady, had a medical bill, or at least we think she did. To this day, we don't know if it was a legitimate bill. They never produced the original bill. She doesn't even know what the bill was for. But she woke up one morning with this debt, and the first that we learned of it, and I didn't learn of it, our attorney, or actually our payroll department learned of it because her wages had been garnished. It was a $294 bill originally, we now know, but her wages were being garnished for a total of $1,307. So how did you get a $294 bill up to over $1,300? By adding attorney fees and interest. That's how it got there over a period of apparently several years. We learned about it when they garnished her wages, but they didn't have her name right. They told us, would you send, the garnishment was for a Social Security number that we had, but a name that we didn't have. The name didn't match the Social Security number. We informed the collection agency and the attorney firm, the law firm, we've got that Social Security number, but we don't have that name. It doesn't match. And they said, well, what's the name? Just tell us the name. And we said, well, we can't legally do that. We can't be handing out names that match up with Social Security numbers, but if you'll send us an interrogatory, which is a legal letter saying, please send it, then we'll be happy to send it to you. There was not the response that we expected. They were not happy with that. We thought that that's what we were going to get, an interrogatory. Instead, we got a demand that now we owed, that we were placing ourselves in the position, since we wouldn't cooperate, which we thought we were cooperating, now we owed the $1,300 and needed to pay that instead of the employee. That actually went to court. We argued our position in court, no, we don't owe that. And of course, we won that. That was a ridiculous claim that Melaleuca had to pay that. And we ended up, the judges saying, send them the interrogatory or give them the name or whatever. The judge allowed us to provide the name, and the employee's wages were garnished successfully. We thought that was the end of it, but wait, not so fast. Then the employee received an additional bill for $5,583 for the attorney fees that the attorneys that had unsuccessfully charged us, that court battle that we had, that they were demanding that Melaleuca pay the entire bill. They were now demanding that the employee pay their attorney fees, even though they had lost the case. We thought that was bizarre, and we happened to mention that to the local press, who picked up the story, East Idaho News specifically. And when they ran the story, the response from the citizenry was just unbelievable. Hundreds of people wrote on this news site and their Facebook site, hundreds wrote in, I had the same thing, something similar. This is what they did to me. This is what they did to me. I was carted off to jail. I was threatened to go to jail. All of these stories started coming in, mostly focusing on one particular outfit, but not all that outfit. And we thought, we were jarred that we were getting this kind of public. We had no idea that it was this big a thing. And it went on for days. And we thought, we struck something here. And so we reached out to some of those people. And we identified them from their Facebook page, and we reached out in a friendly manner and said, could you tell us your story? Well, the stories we heard were atrocious, unbelievable. And then we thought, you know what, we might should follow up on some of this. When you hear a story once, you don't know if it's true, especially in today's world. You just doubt everything you hear. If you hear it twice, you say, well, maybe that was true, especially if it's two different people from their own personal experience. If you hear it 3, 4, 5, 6 times, then you start saying, wow, maybe it's true. And when you hear the same story dozens and dozens and dozens of times, you start believing the story. And that's the situation that we got. Now, my wife and I, Belinda and I, and our family has been blessed more than anybody we ever should be blessed. And we've received way more than our share of blessings. And we thought, we're in a position to maybe help some of these people. And we learned what the deal was, that if they felt they didn't have the means to get an attorney, that many of them were default judgments. I'll give you a list of things, the stories that we were told from dozens and dozens of people, the same story over and over and over. And if they'd have got an attorney, it would cost them more. That's the gimmick of some of these firms. If they can charge you with stuff, and it'll cost you more to defend it than just to pay them. I'm not sure if that's the definition of extortion, but it comes pretty close in my mind. And so people, they can't afford an attorney, so they end up paying. And here's well, I'll just tell you. So my wife and I, we offered we're going to put it $500,000 in a fund and start defending folks. And we just threw the offer out there. 483 people came forward with their stories in a matter of just a few weeks. We're still getting phone calls. That number is growing. It's grown. That number is like 10 days old, so it's a bigger number today. I didn't get it updated this morning. We communicated to all of them, interviewed most of them. We offered and did contract with 140 of them to take on their case. A lot of these complaints we couldn't do too much about. They were post-judgment. They had already gone through the court system. The case was already closed on 82 of them. Of the 140, we offered to help them, even though their case was already over. And so, but we went back and said, look, we're going to reopen this case. We're going to tell the judge how you got that judgment. If you don't, either reduce the amount or put them on a more reasonable payment schedule so that they can pay it. And in 35 cases, we've been successful in that. And credit to the outfit we were working with, that they worked with us on that. Of the others, 58 are pre-judgment. They haven't got a judgment against them yet. 51 of those have been scheduled already in the courts. Now, this was alarming to us. This particular one outfit files approximately 10 cases in the local courts per day. They're just all boilerplate kind of things. In the last 12 months, this one collection, there are lots of collection agencies. I don't mean to be picking on this one in particular. It's just the one that happens to be one of those that's operating here locally. In the last 12 months, 2,431 cases filed in the local courts. That is a huge burden on the courts. But then there's a method to the madness. This is what we're having been told to us dozens of times. Excessive attorney fees for simple tasks. Just the same thing that they file, the word is changed, all they do is change the name, and then they charge several hundreds of dollars for doing the same thing, and they might file, like I say, 10 of them a day. Telling people, this happened a lot. According to these people, and we haven't had the court cases on this, so the courts will determine the truthfulness of this or not. But when you got dozens of people telling you the same thing, you wonder if it's not true. Telling people not to show up in court. We got this. No, it's okay. We understand. You didn't pay the bill. But there's a court date, but you don't have to show up. We'll take care of it for you. Well, of course, then you get a default judgment because they didn't show up in court. And then you can tell the judge you want any amount of attorney fees. And the judge is in this horrible position that the judge has to award it. Almost has to. Sometimes the judge won't, but usually they will. There's nobody on the other side, no one to make an argument, no argument to hear. We've had judges, we've seen the court records, the judge saying, you guys, this is awful what you're doing. But the judge does it anyway. Telling people not to get an attorney because it'll only cost you more money. If you get an attorney, it'll run up your bill even higher. So don't get an attorney. I think these last two things, I suspect, are already against the law. refusing to provide people, individuals with paperwork or an original bill. That's something I think that does have to be addressed in legislation. How can you go after somebody and tell them there was a bill out of nowhere without producing even what the original bill is? Our employee still doesn't know what the bill was for. She'd been to a doctor only a couple of times in the last 10 years, and she doesn't know which of these cases this bill was for or who the bill. I need to be careful because I'm not sure. I don't think she even knew who it was to. And they refused to provide that to her. Making misstatements regarding the nature of the litigation. Here's a favorite one. Calling people and telling them. There's a very threatening letter that they send out to say, if we get in a judgment, we can do this to you. If we get a judgment, we can have the sheriff do this to you. We can take you to jail. We can take you, basically it goes through a whole list of things and says, in fact, I think the statement's in there, basically take anything you own, including your house, your car, anything you own, if we get a judgment. Which happens to be true, by the way. That's true. I'm not sure if it should be that way, but they can if they get a judgment. But then the next piece is egregious in my mind, because after they tell them that, they say, and now there's been a judgment. When there's been no judgment, only a complaint filed, no judgment. So there's this mincing of words that goes on that scares people to death. And they think they're going to take, and in many cases, the sheriff does show up, by the way. And it's usually when they've missed a court date, and now they're in contempt of court, so the sheriff shows up, and the sheriff shows up with this kind of a message. You got to get this person on the phone and talk to them, and then the collection agency is in a position of power. This person is the police is there, the sheriff's office, the sheriff is there, they're taking them to jail. Do you want to be in that negotiating position? And here's the phone, settle. That's the position they're in. We think that's particularly unfair. I'll tell you why sometimes people don't even know they got a bill when this is happening. Many times this is the first time they ever knew there was a bill when the sheriff shows up. Telling people, well, how much can you pay? The bill is $3,000. How much can you pay? I can pay $20 a month. No way. The law says you have to have it all paid up in 5 payments. The judge is going to require it. The judge is not going to accept that from you. 5 payments. We need to have it all in 5 payments. That's usually the number, 5 payments. Well, there's no such law. There's no such rule that you have to pay it all in 5 payments. But the poor defenseless patient doesn't know that. And they're put in, it's already been tough enough that they had to go through the medical procedure and they got these bills, but now and then they're hit with these attorney fees. And that's really what we're after is the attorney, every phone call, everything, they get hit with another big attorney. Every judgment, every garnishment, you get another big attorney fees. In our employee's case, what they had done prior to the garnishment, they had applied for attorney fees, collection fees, and then attorney fees. The judge had said, that's outrageous. The judge had reduced the amount. This is before they got it up to the $1,300. They took the $294 to $1,300. How they got it to $1,300 is they added these attorney fees. The judge said, that's way too much. No, I'm not going to allow that. So they billed her for going to the judge in the first place, and then they go back a week later and appeal the decision to the judge and say, Your Honor, wouldn't you give us another $100? Okay, I'll give you another $100. And that's what happened. And then they tacked on, and I forget how much, a whole huge attorney fees on top of that because they had to go back to the judge to ask for more money. You get the racket? Is it legal in Idaho? Yes. Evidently it is. It's working pretty good for folks that are willing to do that to somebody. Refusing to back down from a lawsuit where the medical providers made a mistake. We've got several cases where people have, the doctor said, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. No, it's not that amount. Or the insurance company, that's been settled. Okay, no, you're right, the patient. You're right, she's right or he's right. They tell the collection agency, no, that's right, they don't owe the money. Now the attorneys still come back and try to collect attorney fees because they were involved in the collection in the first place. And they don't bill the doctor for making the mistake, they bill the patient. Over and over and over. I'm not telling you things we don't heard one. I'm telling you stories that we've heard over and over and over. Collecting on debts that have already been paid, same story. Attorney fees. Even though they were already paid up, and they were right, they were paid up, wasn't an error. So you got the heirs, they're collecting the attorney fees for the heir. Already paid up, they're collecting attorney fees for that. It's all about getting the attorney fees. In my opinion, our impression, it's not about collecting the medical debt. Because the attorney fees are often many times what the medical debt start. It's just trying to find an excuse to run up attorney fees. And then the last one, charging people for reprocessing. So they put them on a payment plan, and let's say it's $20 a month. I'm paying $20 a month, and I think I'm making headway. Oh, not so fast. Because I didn't know it until I've been doing this for 5 years. And after 5 years, I find out I should be all paid up. My gosh, what's going on? Oh, well, we applied a processing fee. Every time you paid a bill, we charged you for processing your payment. So you thought you were making progress, but sorry, if you want to make progress, you got to increase the payment. And so they're on this treadmill. So we found several cases of that. Our point is, we think we can't address everything, but we think that some of this should be addressed. When you think about, we give you a little flyer of how many people. Now I want to draw attention to this little flyer. According to this is a number, and we don't have all your counties in here. This is how much that's in collection, not how much bills are owed, supposedly. I mean, I can't verify this, but the source that gave us this says that this is the amount that it's in collection. It's not just owed, it's gone to collection. So that might give you an idea. It's in the ranges from, I don't know, anywhere from 8, 9, 10% to 28% of the population, depending on the county. I don't know if these numbers are accurate, but I can just tell you it's a lot. And I can tell you it's a lot. If you want to know, just go read the stories on East Idaho News or whatever news source, online news source that you're watching, because I think the people will be speaking out on this. Now, the reason that a lot of people don't even know what the bill is because of and this is what we want to address. So we're going to suggest some legislation that does a couple of things here. Some doctors wait, it appears, and this is the hospitals we've talked to really complain about this a lot. Some doctors wait several months, especially in the beginning of the year, before they send their bill in, before they bill the patient. So let's say somebody had their appendix out. There'll be some doctors who just won't send them the bill till later in the year. The reason they wait till later in the year is because they're hoping that by the time they get around to sending their bill out, the patient will have all of the deductibles cleared, and the doctor will now not be dealing with the patient, but they'll be billing with the insurance company. That's what who the doctor wants to deal directly with. And so they'll wait. But that causes the patient a lot of trouble because there are a lot of bills that come in. I'll give you an example. For one hospital visit, let's say you had an accident. Let's say the accident was at night. 10 o'clock at night, you're in an car accident. You're taken to the emergency right here in Ermac. Well, what people don't know that Ermac, the emergency room is run by a whole different company than the hospital itself. So you'll get a bill. When your bills come, and they'll all come separate, you'll get an ambulance bill. You'll get an emergency room bill. You'll get a bill from the hospital. You'll get it from the doctor in the emergency room. And if you had to stay overnight, your doctor probably changed to a different doctor. So you can get a bill from that doctor also. If there was an x-ray taken, you'll get a bill from the consult, the person who reads the x-ray, and the radiology company. Sometimes that's the same, run by the hospital. Sometimes it's not. You get a bill from the pharmacy. You get a bill for your lab work, your blood work. If there was surgery done, you get a bill from the surgeon. And if you had to have anesthesia, then you'd have a bill from the anesthesiologist group, which is a whole different company. So you're sitting here saying, I wonder how much the bill's going to be. And you won't know. Not this month, not next month, not 6 months from now, because you could get a bill way after it happened. One kind person just brought this as a little demonstration. One medical procedure, all of the bills, heavy one, life-saving one, big deal, had to go out of town for the surgery. But this is the stack that this particular patient has to wade through and try to sort through, because all the bills come in separate. And to try to compile them and try to match the date. And some of them are from doctors you never heard of. Never heard of this company before. And the one example that we heard is, let's say it was at 10 o'clock at night. Well, nobody's there to read the x-ray 10 o'clock at night. So they send the x-ray out. In this case, the one example was to Australia, where it's daytime in Australia. I don't know if it's daytime 10 o'clock at night, so maybe my example doesn't work perfectly. But in that example it did. It was to Australia. And they read the x-ray in Australia, and they said, yep, the bone is broken, this is what you got. And so, okay, so we know what it is in the middle of the night. Now, let's say it's that bill that comes in. Let's say that the Australian company doesn't bill me till 6 months later. I get a bill from Australia. The name of what? I'm thinking, this isn't a real bill. This is a scam. I haven't even been to Australia. Or to Spokane, Washington either, for that matter. Or to Chicago either, for that matter. So I might be tempted to throw a bill like that away. And that's where the attorneys have a heyday. Because I'll sit here and argue that bill and think it didn't exist. And they just wait for those. Or the other thing they have a heyday with, if the address is wrong. Or in our case, like our employee, the name is wrong. Because they can keep running that bill and collect every time they send a notice out. Until they run that thing up and they can take you into court. In this case, took her to court under a different name that wasn't her name. So it's a serious problem. Now, here's what I'll get to the bottom line here. Here's what we're proposing. We've talked to a lot of doctors, we've talked to a lot of hospitals, we've talked to a lot of medical providers, including I can't say the word, anesthetist? Is that a word? Did I say it right? I know I say it wrong every time. One of my very favorite people in the world is one. So the anesthesiologist, I know that's the wrong way to say it, but anyway, so we've talked to those people, we've talked to, and there's we're not getting pushback. We got lots of questions, but no pushback, because they think that's a great idea. You should do that. Okay, we've got to figure out how to make this work. We've talked to a few people from the senators and representatives, and everybody likes the idea. Let me tell you what it is. We suggested in Idaho that it be the law for any medical provider to provide the bill within 30 days of the procedure. If you want to get paid, you owe it to the patient to tell him what it's going to cost within 30 days. The insurance company, by the way, we've talked to the insurance companies. They love this because they're in the same thing, trying to put all the pieces together. Because they don't get the bill till, I think they're allowed many, many months. Any provider, many, many, many months to get the bill in. I wonder why. Nobody can tell us. Most doctors, most credible doctors say we do it right away. It's just those straggler ones that don't. In almost every profession, almost every bill, you don't agree to do something until you know what it's going to cost. Okay, if I sell a bottle of shampoo, I got to tell them at the point of sale. I got to charge sales tax on it the minute we do the transaction. For some reason, and all the doctors we've talked to said, no, I can do that. Easy, that's easy. 30 days, that's right. Most people say, I do it the next day. It's just those rare cases that somebody's trying to get in on the tail end of the billing cycle so they can deal with the deductible. So that one's easy. But then the second one isn't quite as easy, but almost as easy. And that is, we're going to say The doctor needs to send the patient the notice. It's not a bill because insurance hasn't had their way with it yet. The insurance company and the facility and where it was done. So if it's the local community care, then it would be there. If it was the local hospital, it would be there. Then we're asking that facility in the next 30 days just to take all of those bills, and it should be as easy as hitting print. Print all of those notices out on one page. There'll be a format so that all the information, doctor name, patient's name, at the top, the date of the procedure, what they did, and what the bill is, okay? All on one sheet. And send that to the patient and to the insurance company within the next 30 days. That's what we're asking. Those two things. And everybody we talk to says, holy smokes, that would help a lot. Then I know I'm going to get a bill. I know the insurance company hasn't, it may be changed because the insurance company may negotiate something better. I don't know. But at least I know I'm going to get a bill from them, and I got some place to start. Now I can start matching these other bills that come in with that original sheet. And then we're going to ask for those two things. Big step forward. Then the next thing we're going to ask for is some limits on how much attorney fees can be in relationship to the bill. And we think there ought to be incentives to take it into small claims court where you don't need an attorney. You can get garnishments in small claims court. You shouldn't need to take a high-priced attorney. In this particular case, where it's really tough is when the collection company is run by the same folks that runs the law firm, and then they don't negotiate a very competitive rate, and so it all falls apart when it's the same firm. We're suggesting that there be some limits on what an attorney can collect in attorney fees in relationship to the bill. We think that'll help the medical community a lot because right now, the attorneys, one hospital told us that the companies that are, the collection agencies who are doing this egregious actions collect less as a percentage of the bill than those who don't. So there are some companies that have pretty good reputations and will work more with the patient. And the hospital, one hospital told me that those collection agencies actually collect a bigger percentage of the bill than those who use egregious tactics. That would make sense because the attorneys, when you're running up attorney fees, you're actually become a competitor to the doctor for that particular patient's budget. They got a $6,000, in our case, a $6,000 attorney bill and a $294 medical bill that you don't even know what it is, and the attorneys are bugging you all the time. You're not hearing anything from the doctor. Who are you going to pay first? It doesn't surprise me that the attorneys are probably getting paid before the doctors. We don't know that. We don't have good stats on that, but one hospital told us that. A lot to work out. Make sure it works for everybody. Our promise is to work with the medical providers, the hospitals, the insurance companies we got some proposed language. Too early to present it to you yet because we want them to have their way with it. We'll be back to you. The question we get first is how difficult will it be for the facility to call and consolidate all the billings from all these different entities? My first question would be, if you think it's tough for the medical facility to do it, try being the patient once when they don't even understand the language that you're talking. But let's make it really simple for the facility. We think it'd be done just this simple. Provide an app. I'm hoping that the Hospital Association will pay for this app. Or we used to call it a computer program, but in today's world, they call it an app. If they won't, Melaleuca will pay for it. Okay, so we'll promise you. So it's not going to be it's not going to be really simple. It's a website, doctor can go in on. They only get to see what they put in. They don't get to see what anybody else does. They fill out the form and say how much I'm going to bill for that date, for that procedure. And they're done. And at the end of the next 30 days, or sometime in the next 30 days, they got 30 days to do it. So actually, you should be able to do it the 31st day. You should be able to hit print, and you got everybody's. We're going to give the hospital 30 more days. I don't know. You guys might want to shorten it. 30 more days, and then hit print. That's all you got to do. Hit print, and take what printed out and put it in an envelope and send it to the patient. we think it can be pretty simple. And so far, everybody we've talked to says that we ought to do exactly that. The patients will love it. The insurance companies will love it. We think that your families will love it, and so will people in Idaho. Our job will be to provide transparency, to work with folks, to try to make sure that everybody's heard so that it works with them. We're probably not going to, some attorneys have made millions of dollars on this. They're going to push back pretty hard on it. We're hoping that our state senators and our state representatives will buckle down and do the right thing here. Our job will be to provide transparency and moral support and backing for those of you who take any criticism from folks who might be on the other side of the argument. We can't figure out who that would be other than some of these attorneys. Some of the hospitals said, well, why don't you have the insurance company consolidate? And our argument is, they're in the same position as the patient, really. They're just waiting for the bills to come in. They don't even know somebody. You know who worked on that patient. You know, that's something that you know. And when the patient, it happened there, it makes sense and they got to add their own bill anyway, so we think it's going to be pretty simple. We're going to educate the public. We're going to put a pretty good sum behind the education to let everybody in Idaho know what we're proposing. We think the public's going to get really behind this, and we wanted to give you guys a heads up of what's coming your way. We're going to try to do our part, not only educate the public, but to solve any real issues that might come up with real objections. We're going to solve them. So that's what we had to tell you. I can't imagine very much objection to this, given every single family is affected by this one way or the other. Everybody you know, I know that many of you in this room have had the same thing when you get these bills straggling in and you don't know. And it doesn't solve all the problems, but it surely gives people a much better chance to figure out what their bill is so they can get it paid on time so the attorneys can't have a heyday with them later. So thank you. That's what I wanted to tell you.